In this tutorial I'll show you how to create a simple tree mesh using Blender and Unreal Engine. I'll also be using Paint.net for the image editing, though of course you can use your preferred image editor such as GIMP or Photoshop. It's very applicable in general to kind of any simple vegetation, so bushes, etc. And in front of you can see 3 meshes which have been created using this method. The first thing we're going to do is to open Blender, as I've already done. We'll create the mesh. Now, you'll see we already have a mesh and a light and a camera. We don't need any of those, so we're just going to select the collection and then we'll just select delete hierarchy. It moves all of them. Now, we do want a plane, so we'll select that in. We'll get above that, and then we'll select this, delete all the vertices. Then we'll just create our own. This should be an irregular polygon and should be kind of roughly around the center here. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to center this a little bit and we'll just extrude it upwards as much as you really want. It's not particularly important, but we'll do this a few times. It just makes the mesh look a bit better if you have done this a few times instead of just doing it once, make it into a spike or something. And then we'll just select one of the vertices, go above, extrude that single vertex, put it to the center, then pull that up a load and create faces. So and this is your trunk, and you're probably in this instance going to want to make it a little bigger, so we're just going to extrude it via the z-axis, and you do want a little bit of the mesh under this red line. So what this does is it means if it's on a slightly uneven surface, there won't be a gap. So for that we need to go to this button here, so the material properties, and we need to press plus twice, and for each one we need to select new, and for the one up here we're going to name it bark, and for one here we're going to name it leaf. And we'll just assign all of this to bark. We will then smooth the faces and then recalculate outside. After that, we'll get this and we will smart UV unwrap. Alternatively, you can just use UV unwrap, but smart is better. Okay, so now you see you've got a bit of a mesh. Best for this UV just to drag it via the X coordinate a bit. So we're going to press S, then X, and that will move it a bit, and G, then X, and that will put it into the center. Go back to layout, and you see we have that, but we don't have any leaves. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a plane here, and we'll probably just want to select these two and select subdivide. From this one can be brought out onto here, and this up a little. And so this we can then assign to the leaf material. We'll go back to UV editing and we'll just unwrap it. And so now you have your leaf mesh and your trunk mesh. But now what we need to do is we need to duplicate your leaf mesh just after we've smoothed it. So you want to duplicate it when you're sure, hey, this is good and I like how it works. And so we're just going to move it into kind of a position, and then we'll just duplicate. So you have to do this a lot. It's generally also a good idea to move these, to select these and move them and duplicate them, more than once, so you can get more than at the same time. And keep doing this. It should eventually look good. You can see now that I've completed the tree. It's got an awful lot more leaves. So next you want to go to UV layout, and we're going to go to UV and export UV layout. But this has to be for the leaf. and so you'll have that image in your files wherever you want to put it. You'll also then want to go File, Export, FBX, and put that in a similarly appropriate place. The next stage is to edit the leaf UV image. So I've opened this in paint.net. You can open up in your preferred software. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we need to get the image we want to use. So I've taken this image off the web. It's the first result if you search up, I think, pine branch texture. So the first thing we need to do is we need to remove all the white in the background. It's pretty common in a lot of images, they're not fully transparent. So we'll just remove that. And next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move it into the correct position. So that looks fine. And then we can change the exact scale and everything to make it fit perfectly. So that's good. Now that is finished. It's really easy. However, if you are kind of, thinking about making your game more efficient or whatever, you might want to decrease the image size. For instance, I have it here as 1024. You might want to get that down to 512 or kind of anything smaller or even bigger if you really want. Simply after this, we're just going to want to delete the background here and then just Control S and save. And so make sure you got 32 bits, which will be good. For our final step, we're back in Unreal. And I've imported the assets. I imported the tree and the leaf. For the tree, my engine just creates, the default materials for it, but you can create those manually. First thing we're going to do is create the bark. So we're just going to go into here and we're going to get a texture sample. Just a texture sample. And we're going to put this into here. And we'll select this as just bark. And it doesn't really matter what type of bark, just if you have some. And then we're going to select a fairly high value for our roughness and a fairly low value for both our metallic and specular values. This will make it not shiny. And this will be automatically applied here, but we can't really see it because all the leaves are in the way. So we'll go to the leaves and we'll drag in our leaf UV. We'll put that into here and put this into opacity mask, which isn't connected up yet because we have to set our blend option to mask so we can see through. And then we'll also set two-sided so we can see around the back. And it's fine to set the shading model something like two-sided foliage. And also do the same, your metallic should be relatively low and your roughness relatively high. This makes it not look shiny, which is something you really want. And you got a tree. It looks okay. And certainly ways to make it look better, such as normal maps. Of course, more leaves make it look better. Maybe a bit of placement on some of them. One really simple way is to use grass wind. So we're just going to select simple grass wind. We're going to select, I think, a value about 0.5 in for the intensity, the weight, and this slash node, which isn't as important. And we're just going to select this, the bulb position offset. And we'll see that when this is applied, it shimmers slightly, which gives us the effect of wind. Now we can see we can just put this at the side and it is a lot bigger. And I'm going to show you kind of what you can do with it. So the most important part of foliage is painting, because that's generally how it's applied. So we can drop the foliage in here, save that to that, doesn't really matter. And for this, we have to, expand all of these things correctly. And we'll set the density as about 5. And its scale we can dramatically decrease. And then we can just paint it. And those shaders will get prepared, get calculated. And you can paint as much of this as you want. And that's, there's a lot of settings. So you can line to normal. That's if you're on a slope. If you have a line to normal on, it'll be aligned to slope. If it's not, it won't be. So for things like trees, you generally don't want them to be because they always grow up, but for grass, you would, or it would look funny. And you can think like random yaw, which is how it's rotated, which you generally do want on. And then you can want various things like just cast the shadow, etc. So yeah, that's how to create kind of simple vegetation. Maybe low poly, good for distance type things. So remember to like and subscribe or something.